It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview Cortney Goodson, who works with Blink Marketing in the college licensing. How are you doing today?
Hey, Brandon, I am great. You doing okay?
Yes, I'm doing good.
Okay, good.
Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to work in college licensing?
Sure. So, as you might find, licensing kind of just falls into people's laps. No one really knows about it. But when I interviewed at Mississippi State University, I was told about the licensing duties that were housed in the general counsel's office. And so it was really intriguing. And so once I got started, I learned more about licensing, and my interest has continued to grow throughout my career.
What was your time like at Mississippi State in the licensing department?
Mississippi State, I love Mississippi State. I bleed maroon and white, but it was great. It was a great start to my career, and with a bunch of wonderful people. But at Mississippi State, I was a paralegal and a licensing assistant. And so my duties were split, probably 50-50. We managed the brand of Mississippi State University, and I was there for 5 years. And so I had a lot of experience in the paralegal world for a university and the licensing world at a university.
Can you talk about, of course, what a paralegal is?
Yes. So a paralegal is basically the helper to an attorney. But at a university, all general counsel offices are different. But at the university, I kind of was the face of the office. I welcome greeters. I managed the calendars for the attorneys. I managed like the input, like the workflow for the attorneys. And I managed like processing tort claims, talking with departments if they needed legal help.
What were some of your roles as the licensing assistant at Mississippi State?
So the licensing assistant at Mississippi State, I assisted the licensing director in anything that she needed, both retail, internal, any type of branding projects. And we also had a social media page that I managed. So it was really fun to get a full view of the brand at Mississippi State as the licensing assistant.
What was the transition like from going from Mississippi State, which is the SEC, to going to Vanderbilt, who is also in the SEC, as a brand consultant?
The transition was interesting, and completely different schools, even though they are both in the SEC, with Vanderbilt being a private institution and Mississippi State being a public institution. Both were great learning experiences, but they definitely had their differences, and I would contribute that to them being public and private.
What were some of your roles and responsibility as the brand consultant?
At Vanderbilt, as the brand consultant, I managed the internal buying process and the internal brand for the university and the medical center. So even though the university and the medical center are separate entities, the university, still managed the brand.
Of course, going to Vanderbilt, what was that like, managing the brands, especially with it being a private entity?
It's still the same. You're still trying to tell a cohesive, strong brand story, whether private or public. But it's with the difference between the university and the medical centers, they had two separate brands. It was very much the medical center had their brand guidelines and the university had their brand guidelines. So I had to know both of those and be able to communicate those and help the university with theirs and help the medical center departments with theirs. So it was really interesting and a good time.
What are some similarities and differences between the licensing assistant and a brand consultant?
I would say they are both very similar. You'll find that universities have their own job titles and they have the interpretation or those set rule or set job duties for those titles. But I will say at Vanderbilt, I had a set goal of managing the internal process. And at Mississippi State, it was all encompassing. So I would say that was the difference between those two. So yes, so the licensing department at Mississippi State was housed in the general counsel's office. It was not housed in athletics. So we were charged with working closely with athletics, although we were not housed in athletics. So we still had very much a hands-on management of the program.
What is it like after, of course, your time at Mississippi State and Vanderbilt going all the way to Blink Marketing?
It has been such a fun transition. I know my previous roles helped shape me into being an asset for Blink. So I'm excited that I chose Blink and Blink chose me to manage their collegiate portfolio.
Can you talk about, of course, managing their collegiate portfolio and what you do for them?
Sure. So I manage their portfolio, and in that, I'm charged with growing their collegiate portfolio. I make sure that our licensing contracts are fully executed and we're abiding by those contracts. I manage artwork approvals to the school. I manage royalties. That's where a licensee pays the school for using their brand. Let's see what else. And I work with the sales reps to manage their projects, make sure the brand is correct, and just continuing to stay in touch with my university clients and licensing directors and nurturing those relationships.
What is it like managing the royalty?
So it's really interesting. So I'm sure you know this, but schools have licensing agencies that manage all of the payments, all of the contracts. And so with those artwork approvals that we send into the school, we have to pay royalties. And so it's just reporting to the school what departments or students have bought from us, and making sure we pay the right amount to the school.
Of course, what schools do you work with Blink Marketing?
We have over 25 schools. We work with the SEC, ACC. We have a lot of community colleges because those are just as important as the big schools. And so I think we have an array across the United States.
What are some similarities and differences between working with big universities like SEC, ACC, and community colleges?
I would say there's not a big difference. It's going to be dependent upon the school's spend and what they need for their brand, to tell their stories to their students and things like that. So it's all very similar. It's just important for us, for Blink, to know the brand and make sure that we are being good brand ambassadors for the school.
Can you talk about, of course, the process of being good brand ambassadors for each school?
Yes. So what I would consider a good brand ambassador is making sure that I know the brand. I know that there's a white stroke on the outside of your logo, and why you have a circle R there or TM, and I make sure that our reps know that as well. So the reps that are in charge of the specific schools, making sure that they know, okay, this is their PMS color. This is how they need to order. This is what the departments need to know and do. And so just making sure that we know their policies and procedures, both from a licensing standpoint and from the standpoint of like a purchasing, how that school can do that properly.
What is it like for you to learn all these like licensing rules and stuff, especially like, let's say if it's a school that you've never heard of before?
Oh, I love it. I mean, it's nice to get to know people and get to know a brand because those small details of what their font is so important, because a brand has value, and it's important for somebody that you're, or the company that you're working with, for them to know that value and appreciate it.
How does it feel to you knowing, of course, when you create these brands for these colleges and you see it on merchandise and even, let's say, athletic apparel such as jerseys, knowing that you've had that input of, okay, I kind of helped them design this brand and this logo maybe?
It makes us proud. From a licensing director standpoint, from the school's perspective, when I was there, I held value for that customer or for that company that we worked with. And so from this side, it makes me proud to be a part of their story.
What are some of your future plans in college athletics?
From a Blink standpoint, just to make sure that we are a great partner, and being up to date with all these new NEAL policies, and how we can help, just reinforcing a good partnership with our schools.
How would colleges go about making sure they get a partnership with Blink Marketing?
I mean, if we try to be good stewards, like I said, and so if a school is interested, whether they know me or one of my reps, we make sure to go about it the right way. So if a small department reaches out to us and it's like, we want some t-shirts, well, I make sure that we go through the licensing department to ensure that we are starting off on the right foot, making sure that they know that they reached out to us and, how can we help? So just making sure that we're doing everything the right way, because that's what we pride ourselves on.
What advice would you give future people looking to work in college athletics on the licensing side?
I would say good advice that I've always received is to be a sponge. Absorb all the information that you can find. Licensing is such a huge world, and it's not just collegiate. There's a whole world out there full of licensing opportunities, whether that be with toys or manufacturers or universities.
Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with Blink Marketing at?
Blink Marketing is found on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So feel free to connect with us on there. We'd love to have you. Yeah.
Thank you again, Courtney Goodson, for your interview, and best of luck in your future with Blink Marketing.
Thanks, Brandon.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, And you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Courtney Goodson, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
You too. Thanks.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.